Hello everyone, welcome back, or if you are new, welcome in general. I have a guest today. I've wanted to do a guest for a while. I know I've only done a few videos, but trust me, I've been thinking about this YouTube thing for a while. So anyways, I have one of my very best friends and also one of my cousins here. He is both. This is Steve, and I brought him here to talk about something that he's very much involved in his life, and it's important to him, and I want him to be able to speak about it and educate people about this. So I'll let him tell you a little bit about what this is.
So the topic that she's hinting at is kink and leather community. I've been a big part of it for about 3 years now. It's a core part of my identity. I'm a dom within the kink community.
I thought it would be kind of cool if we bring in sort of something pop culturally relevant and kind of talk about it from that angle, so that way there's kind of a touch point for some of you who are maybe not familiar with the community. We both kind of did homework for this, and we watched the 50 Shades of Grey movie. I didn't have very high hopes for this movie. How about you?
No. I'd heard it was very misrepresentative of the community. I heard it was about just abuse, and that all of these people wanting to learn about this topic were going to be misguided based off of this abusive relationship.
Yeah.
So I was just like...
To give you an idea of the hopes I had for it, when presented the option, I bought the $4.90, or well, I didn't buy, I rented from Amazon, but I only bought the standard version of the rental. They were not going to give my extra $1 because my expectations were low. I think it kind of met my low expectations. I didn't find it to be particularly appealing to me personally. I think one of the worst parts of the movie for me was when he finds out she's a virgin and he's like, I'm going to rectify the situation. I was like, well, that's sexy. Thank you for rectifying her situation. So I'm kind of wondering what you think about that, because to me, like, being a non-member of the community, I was like, that seems very abrasive and not maybe the best course of action to be like, I'm going to rectify your situation so that way we can get kinky later. How did you feel about that portion?
I was a little divided about it because on one hand, I'm a big romantic, so the first time is a big deal for me. And it was a big deal for me when it happened. On one hand, it's like, this is a stranger basically, and you're having sex with them. Way to
stranger
go.
Rectifying your situation.
Right.
Yeah.
But then on the other hand, like as a dom, if I'm going into a scene with someone that doesn't have a lot of experience, like if they haven't been tied up before, I might have a scene already in mind, and if I find out, oh, they don't have any experience with rope, I'm going to ease them into it and approach it very differently. And so I kind of feel that's what Christian maybe did, because a lot of people in our community do see just like having sex as a fetish, a kink. I think he kind of saw it as, she doesn't have experience in this one thing, it's going to be a big aspect of our relationship, so instead of tying her down and fucking her, I'm going to ease her into it, and I'm going to approach it in a way I haven't before. He did like the whole romantic, like, share the bed thing that he doesn't do, but so.
Okay, we have very different ideas, but I don't come from the kink community, so I think your view of it is valuable in the conversation about whether it's an abusive relationship or not, or, you know, because like some people kind of thought that was like sort of an abuse of power to be like, hey, I'm going to have sex with you so that way you will later consent to be kinky with me and to, you know, be my sub and whatever. So I think you're kind of coming at it from a different angle, and I think that's a valuable piece of this conversation.
Well, consent in general is always really important, but even if that wasn't a kink interaction, it's still a sexual interaction. Consent is important in any sexual interaction. Yeah. So I do feel like in that specific scene, like, she gave consent. Like, I don't think he like sprung it on her.
With it.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, this franchise has been under fire since it was just informed that, you know, it's not an accurate representation of kink or the BDSM community. So why don't we talk a little bit about that?
Well, when I first watched it, I watched it with 9 other kinksters. We had this preconceived notion going in that it was going to be horrible. Like I said, we thought it was misrepresenting our community. And by the end of the movie, we were all eating our words. All 10 of us thought it was amazing.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And there was a lot of accuracy. Just developing that relationship from the start introducing a new person to it, a lot of that was incorporated. The contract itself, it was very well done. I've personally done contracts, and while I do a different approach than he did, I thought it was very accurate. We all loved the movie.
So how do you do it differently? Like, they sat at like this table, like, I mean, they make this very dramatic scene about they have dinner, or you know, the drama is built by them sitting at these opposite ends of the table, and he already has the draft done up, and they're going through the contract and, like, you know, let's cross that out, or, you know, like, I don't know what I don't know actions like. You're a fan? Okay.
Yeah, I'm a fan.
Do you think it's like completely inaccurate the way he did it, or just completely different approach?
No, I think it was very accurate, and there were other people in the room when I was watching it that identified with it. But the way I do it is more tailored to the sub. I have like a template that I go off of, but when I first present a sub with a contract, we've already discussed the limits, so those are incorporated into it. So I present an initial draft, and then the sub looks it over, decides if everything is okay, and if not, we talk about what needs to be removed or what they would like added. It's so the entire process for me is a negotiation before we get to the actual contract, the final version, and then by that point, we should both be good to just sign. Whereas Christian already had his template, and instead of molding it to the sub, gave it to the sub, and then let's edit it, and I'll just agree to everything that you tell me you don't want to.
Okay, so yours is like more of a sort of like, here's my general contract, let's do a back and forth. Theirs was like a sit down sort of back and forth where they just like cross things up and then signed like this weirdly, you know, inked, edited document, and then, okay.
Well, and I didn't like that there wasn't much discussion. This was all new experiences to her. Mm-hmm. She would be like, well, what's this? He would explain it, but not necessarily explain why it was something he wanted on the contract. And I think it's important for Dom to express, like, this is why I want to do something with you.
So, like, it fulfills this need for me. Is there any, like...
Right.
So, like, trying to find a middle ground with your sub rather than, like, just being like, plain, this is out, explain why you want that.
Exactly.
And then going back and forth between the two of you for those.
Right, because I've had subs, like, I enjoy giving pain, and I've had subs off the bat say, well, pain is a limit. And I'll say, okay, I can take pain out, but then if you don't obey an order and we have to do a punishment, what tools do I get? If I don't get to do anything you don't like to do, that's not cool. Like, there's no training going to be involved. So you might not like pain, but can you endure pain? She might have thought butt plugs were like a gross thing or whatever hang up she had about it, but if you would have explained, like, you know, sometimes we can put it in you and then we can go out, and that way the entire time you're thinking about me, like those little subtle things, maybe she'd have been like, oh, okay, and would have been more turned on to the idea than just, oh, no, that's off. And Christian's just like,
okay. Oh, okay. It's nice to hear that there's like this negotiating piece to this.
Well, and I'll also say that contracts aren't all that common. I don't actually know a lot of other people in the community that use contracts. However, there's always negotiations happening. And
yeah. So some of it's more verbal.
A lot of it is just like, tell me your limits, tell me about your sexual health, when was the last time you were tested, what experience do you have, like circulation or anxiety problems? Like, there's a lot of different questions that you should always ask before getting into an encounter. As a sub, you want a certain level of trust before you're giving your will away to someone else, trusting that they're going to actually obey the limits that you've set up.
So there are definitely some expectations between like the Dom and the sub, and like it's not just that the Dom is going to expect the sub to obey or whatever. There are also expectations on the part of the Dom. You know,
oh, absolutely.
On the Dom. So talk a little bit about that. Like, what are some of the things that you think are important to know about that portion of that kind of relationship?
In the movie, it really drove me crazy because there were a couple times when, even though they didn't actually agree to the contract, they were still kind of playing off those rules beforehand, which kind of goes back to like, you can still consent without having a signature on a piece of paper. But one of the rules, for example, is like, she's not allowed to touch him in the movie, and she would do that occasionally. And everyone in the room that I was watching was like, where's her punishment? Like, right there, she did something wrong, like, and he was very inconsistent. As a Dom, like, consistency is huge. If you say that you're going to punish for a certain behavior, or you have to encourage that behavior by punishing when it's not happening.
And because of the contract, I mean, the sub should be aware that that's, you know, going to be a repercussion if they do these certain acts. So it wouldn't be like a surprise to them if you were like, oh, you're getting punished, right? They're going to know that, hey, this, that, and the other actions are going going to receive punishments, and they should be expecting that if they do those things. This 50 Shades of Grey movie is a love story. What is your take on that portion of it? Because obviously there's this contract that goes into this, and both parties are supposed to abide by it, which, contract doesn't seem like, contracts don't seem like love. I mean, I know like marriage is technically like a contract legally, like sign into it, whatever, but we don't necessarily think about that culturally. It's more love, and a contract is more like a legal thing that we don't talk about, even though, like I say, marriage is technically a legal contract. How does that play into this? Like, because obviously Christian falls for her, Anastasia, she's a little hot cold sometimes. What are your thoughts?
I identified so much in that aspect because, like I said, I'm a huge romantic, and I have fallen for subs. On the other hand, I have played with subs on a regular basis and not fallen for them, and they've fallen for me. It gets really complicated when the dom is falling for a sub when it's not reciprocated, because there's a power exchange happening where usually the dom is the one in control of everything and the sub isn't. They've given up the control. But when love is involved and the dom loves the sub and it's not reciprocated, the sub suddenly gains a lot of power.
So you're like way off at that point?
Right, and you could tell in the movie that like Anastasia was giving all these quips and kind of being a smartass throughout the entire movie, and based off of what Christian said, his past experiences, that wouldn't have flied. Like, she would have just been out the door. But he was so lenient because of his feelings for her. Like, he was scared that she would run away if he didn't act in a certain way.
I don't think we discussed this or have ever discussed it before, but I mean, there are safe words and things like that, correct? If I'm correct?
Yeah, safe words, and actually we can touch on that real quick.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was really glad that he used the yellow-red system, and that's what I use, which mine is a little bit different from his. So I use green, yellow, red, and it's very common in the community that those are the safe words that are used. So green is just like everything's fine. Yellow usually means we need to slow down and discuss what's happening. And then red is typically we need to stop. And I would really like that to become more of a universal thing, because one of the first early interactions I had with someone, I just told them to pick their own safe word, and they couldn't even think of one, so I suggested fan blade or something like that. Because I was new, I didn't know the correct approach to suddenly introduce something to someone. I went way too fast, and he forgot his safe word, so he was not able to communicate that he needed to stop, and it ended up with him having to run to the bathroom and throw up. So I really encourage, and I love the idea of it becoming a universal green, yellow, red safe word system, because then everyone's on the same page. People enter the community. Yeah, I loved that they did use that in the movie. I thought that was perfect.
Did you want to talk a little bit about issues of consent? Safe word kind of plays into that idea and allows for the sub to have some control over the events if it becomes too much. But there's also other sort of issues of consent, perhaps.
There were aspects of the movie where consent wasn't happening, and that's kind of like going back to the abusive part of the relationship, like when Christian appeared, where Anastasia was on vacation and told her to demanded that she eat, and that obviously wasn't welcome. And one of the main problems, I think, that why Anastasia was so hesitant to enter the relationship was she had a hard time with the public aspect of it. She felt it was very humiliating, I think. Not being able to touch him and the way that she had to act in public really bothered her, because she wanted more of that intimate type of interaction. She didn't get that. It was an issue.
Definitely not like a typical romantic relationship, right? I mean,
right.
At least the way it's portrayed there, yeah.
Right, but if they're not on the same page, then it's not a relationship that should be happening.
Right.
That's kind of going back to the consent. And then in the very last scene in the movie, when she just gets punished and he starts just beating on her, I really resonated with that, because I was thinking about how even though she had consented to being punished, she even offered to go in. She was the one that brought it up. She went into the red room and went on the table and was counting. You could just tell she wasn't okay with it happening. And then it was validated afterwards, where she's like, "You're never going to touch me again," and she ended up leaving. It made me really question the whole idea of consenting and then taking it back. It's not like he necessarily broke any limits because she had agreed to it. It made me really think of women in frat parties and that kind of thing, where oh, well, you led me on, or
Yeah.
well, I bought you a shot and now you owe me, and like all that kind of stuff, where it's just like a situation where you might have been okay with it before and suddenly you're not.
Like afraid to like stop it, or like feeling like you don't have a right to stop it at that point.
Right,
like,
exactly.
Sort of thing, yeah.
So I think that was I think it's a general issue that in society needs to be addressed. I think that's something that people should take from the end of the movie, whether you're from a kink background or not. It's just that whole idea of consenting to someone and then not wanting to continue, but doing it just because you feel pressured.
What about the actual instances of play? And was that true to
There were
life?
certain aspects that were really hot, and I mean, there was a lot of skin happening, and I enjoyed a lot of
You
that.
looked good in them jeans.
And there was lots of boobs happening. And it was amazing. I remember also, like, when he was introducing her to Pain Plan, like, use the crop. It was like, I'm like, really? Like, that did nothing. And I even pointed out, like, one of the first times he ties her up, and I was like, all she has to do is, like, just release the tension a little bit, and she's out. Like, that is not a good knot. And also, when he was in the hardware store and he was buying a rope, and he was, like, coiling it like this, that really bugged me, because that's not a good way to take care of your rope. It's going to get all twisted, and there were certain things like that. I was just like, that's not the proper way to do it.
So if you have a rope supply, take note. So all in all, you liked the movie. I didn't so much. I think you probably appreciated it because it's A, about this culture that you take part in, and B, you say it's not always like 100% accurate, but it was much more accurate than you thought it would be, especially considering like all the hoopla about it.
I had such low standards going in, and I think that's probably why I liked it all. But you left it not liking it. So.
That's true. Yeah.
I was just like, this is garbage, and then I was like, wow, there's a lot that I could identify with.
Something that I think may have colored my experience is I don't really like Dakota Johnson. Like, I don't know if you saw this, but yeah, you were with me when we watched the Oscars, like her really awkward, like, conversation with her mother on the red carpet.
Yes.
Do you remember this?
Yes.
Everybody remembers this. And I haven't liked her since that. I was just like, so your mom doesn't want to see you naked and acting like you're getting it on with somebody. I can understand that. Like,
but she was just like, someday she'll be fine.
She was just it was like so weird.
Mom,
like,
it's just a movie.
But it's like us. Like, I could totally talk to you about like sex and whatever. Like, we're friends. I mean, we've grown up together. Like, that's okay. But I don't want to watch you get it on. Like, right. That's a totally different thing. So like, yeah. So that's a limit. That is a limit. That is a limit to this relationship. Sorry. Yes. Red.
Perfect.
Red. Yes. So, okay. Well, I think that's probably all we have, really. I think this is like a really interesting conversation, and I think there's probably a lot more to be said on the subject. So I think... Oh,
I could go on for days.
You could. Like, yeah. I mean, it's just like a very rich subculture. I think there's a lot more to be said about even your experiences, and like I think you've just led a really interesting life in a lot of ways, especially having this come into your life. I mean, you've only been a part of it for what, 3-4 years now?
About 3 years, yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm only just one opinion too, and so I'm constantly learning and hearing stories from other people in the community and growing. So
awesome, yeah. Well, I mean, I think you should just make your own blog about this, but I think as time.
That's so much time.
It is. Maybe, well, I don't know. We'll see. But if you like this, go down below. It just takes a moment. And you can give this video a thumbs up if you think that Steve should come back and do another volume of sexy talk with you and me. Yeah, give it a thumbs up. Leave some comments below. Maybe you have some direct questions for Steve. He'll probably check out my page sometimes. I mean, he's my
definitely
cousin,
will answer any questions.
So he's kind of obligated to like watch my vlogs. And now that he's on this one, he'll probably feel like obligated to see you.
I'll probably get a little obsessive about it.
You probably will. So leave comments down below. Maybe even talk a little bit about if I were to invite Steve back and you want him back, comment below and let us know what aspects of this culture you might want to hear about, because like I said, there's probably a lot to talk about.
Yep.
And I'm sure he would be willing to do it. And I think you always try to advocate for this subculture, and
I think it's something that people should talk
about. The population. Yeah, I mean, it's something that exists, and the more people know and the more educated they are, the more complexly they can view the people from that society.
And if you are part of the community, share your opinions on what you thought about the movie. Like I said, I'm just one
start
opinion.
a dialogue.
I'm just one opinion in the world of the kink and leather. Yeah. So if you're in that community, I would like to hear more about what you think. So.
Down below, comment. Also subscribe, because I mean, if Steve comes back on and you don't subscribe, but you want to see more stuff, then you might miss it. So I mean, it's just the best thing you can do is subscribe. All right. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't seen it already, go ahead and hit the link to go to my last video. You can follow me on a variety of social media sites at The Nerd Boutique. Please go ahead and give me a subscribe, especially if you don't want to miss the next time Steve comes around. And go ahead and give us a comment below if you have any questions you'd like him to address. And also, obviously, be sure to give this video a thumbs up, and I will see you next time.